Snow drifted softly from the dark winter sky, glowing faintly under the park's scattered street lamps, when Jonathan Hayes, one of the youngest CEOs in Seattle, felt something tugging at the edge of his conscience. He had been walking quickly, his breath visible in the frigid air, his mind full of numbers, meetings, and responsibilities. But all of that fell silent the moment he heard a small, trembling voice behind him. It wasn't loud. It wasn't urgent. Yet it carried the kind of fear only a child could hold. He turned, and his heart tightened. A little girl, no older than 5 or 6, stood in the snow with a blue backpack at her feet. Her pink coat matched the redness around her eyes, and her woolen hat sat crooked on her head. She looked up at him as though he was the last safe person left in the world. And then she whispered, barely audible over the wind, "Please help me. If you believe kindness and second chances can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly helps us continue bringing emotional stories your way." Jonathan knelt before her instinctively, the cold snow soaking into his slacks as he steadied himself. Her tiny hands were shaking, and the moment he gently held them, he could feel how cold she truly was. As she tried to speak, the words caught in her throat, and for a brief moment her eyes glistened with a desperation no child should ever know. She finally managed to whisper that her mom had not come home last night. She had waited. She had searched around their small apartment building. She had even asked a neighbor, but no one had seen her. When morning came, the fear became too loud to ignore, and she walked out into the snow searching for anyone who could help. Jonathan swallowed hard, feeling something unfamiliar rising inside him, an ache far deeper than his usual corporate stresses. He asked her name, but she only shook her head, saying her mother told her never to talk to strangers unless she absolutely needed help. And today, she needed help more than ever. Jonathan stood, looking around the quiet park. No other adults, no guardians, just the distant glow of a diner and the occasional passing of a snow-dusted car. For years, his life had revolved around deadlines, responsibilities, and a lonely condo overlooking the city. But at this moment, none of it mattered. The little girl's trembling form eclipsed everything. He took a deep breath, sensing the weight of responsibility settling upon his shoulders, and decided he would not leave her alone. Not tonight, not ever. He guided her gently through the snow, heading toward the diner where there was warmth, light, and safety. The girl walked close beside him, as though afraid he might disappear if she gave him even a foot of distance. Inside the diner, the warm air hit them immediately, carrying the smell of coffee and fresh pastries. The girl's cheeks slowly regained color as Jonathan ordered her a hot chocolate. When she wrapped her tiny hands around the cup, the smallest hint of relief crossed her expression. Jonathan watched her silently, the hum of the diner filling the background as he wondered what kind of mother would vanish like this. But he refused to assume the worst. Life was complicated, and pain had many faces. As she slowly sipped her drink, Jonathan asked gentle questions, not to pry, but to understand. Her name was Grace. She lived 2 blocks from the park in a small apartment with her mother, who worked double shifts at a nearby bakery. Grace described their life with a quiet innocence, their tiny kitchen, her mother's habit of singing while cooking, and the way they would dance in the living room on Fridays. These little details chipped away at Jonathan's heart. This wasn't abandonment. Something had happened. The snow outside continued falling, thickening into a silvery curtain. Jonathan knew he had to get to her home. He paid the bill, wrapped Grace's scarf tighter around her neck, and led her out into the night. Again. The streets were quieter now, the snow muffling every sound except their footsteps. Grace clutched his gloved hand tightly as they walked. Jonathan wasn't usually the kind of man who believed in fate, but tonight felt different, as if he had been placed exactly where he needed to be. Her apartment building was old and dimly lit, sitting between a laundromat and a closed convenience store. Grace pointed to the second-floor window, where the lights were off. Jonathan led her inside and climbed the narrow steps. He could feel Grace's heartbeat through her grip. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and old carpet, and when he reached her apartment door, he noticed something disturbing. The door was slightly open. Jonathan froze. Grace's breath hitched. He placed a hand on the door and pushed it open slowly, the faint creak echoing ominously through the empty apartment. The living room was dim, the curtains slightly drawn. A chair was knocked over. A cup lay shattered near the sink. Jonathan's chest tightened as he moved forward cautiously, calling out for her mother. No answer came. Grace's eyes filled with tears as she whispered her mother's name into the silence. Jonathan gently pulled her behind him, his instincts sharpening. He didn't know what had happened here, but he knew it wasn't safe to stay. He led her out, carefully closing the apartment door behind them. He called the local police, explaining everything without alarming Grace further. When officers arrived minutes later, they spoke softly and professionally, taking Jonathan's statement and assuring him they would search immediately. Grace clung to Jonathan's coat the entire time, refusing to stand even a foot away. He promised her that he wasn't going anywhere, and he meant it. As the officers left to continue their investigation, Jonathan realized the weight of the night had shifted. Grace had no one else to turn to. And for reasons he couldn't fully explain yet, he felt fiercely protective of her. She was scared, shaking again, and the snow outside was still falling hard. He took her gently into his arms and stepped out into the night, whispering that she wasn't alone anymore. And in that moment, the little girl leaned against his shoulder, finally letting herself cry, not out of fear, but out of relief that someone had shown up for her. Jonathan didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew this: he would help find her mother. He would keep Grace safe, and for the first time in years, he felt like his life had purpose beyond the walls of a corporate office. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful stories. Before you go, tell us in the comments, should Jonathan take Grace into his care until her mother is found?